All right, we're live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome on into another Monday Live with the Whiskey Crusaders. It's just me and Matt tonight. Sarra is out sick and laying in bed, hopefully getting some good rest and some much-needed rest. But we are lucky enough to be joined today by Ty over at Andalusia, the master distiller. We're going to go through and run through the chat real quick. But Ty, we're just really happy to have you here, buddy.
Great to be here, guys.
Thanks for coming. All right, let's see who's joining us this evening. So we've got Trev Wilson, Captain Make It Happen, Mark JG, Ben Stahl, Jeremy Burns, Arthur Lopez, Steve A, Donald Rance, the Linux Cat, Donner Pass Whiskey, Matthew McNabb, Moose Chung, Andrew Sporrell, Christopher David, Brennan Elliott, Sharper 4221. Thanks for coming. I think we've seen him before. Nicholas Burt, the Sweet Tea 1985, Patrick Cohen, Charles Ashworth, Ben Demon Hunter. Let's see, is that everybody? Icehouse, Trey Koontz, Jimmy Drammer, YLW, Jason Unsworth, Tech 187. Hey, Rocket Review, there's Ed. We'll check him out if you haven't so far. Dustin Martin. All right, so tonight we are joined here by Ty, like you said, and there's Luis and Thomas Holes, and we're going to do some Andalusia. So Ty, introduce yourself, tell us the distillery, and what we're drinking, all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my name's Ty Phelps. I'm one of the co-founders of Andalusia Whiskey Company. We started the distillery about 4 years ago out here in the Hill Country. We're about 5 miles outside of Blanco, and we do single malt whiskeys. And so we really specialize in malted barley whiskeys. That's kind of my background. I'm a craft brewer originally by trade for about 15 years. And so that's the grain I know. It's also the whiskey that we love, the whiskey that we like. We're not bourbon guys necessarily, and so this is really the whiskeys that we've settled on, that we knew and that we love. So
definitely one of my favorite top 3 definitely distilleries in Texas. So we're really excited to get you on. So I mean, it took me a while to find a bottle, thankfully, because I was seeing it for the first time on the Whiskey Vault. I guess 2-3 years, and whenever they started, they wanted you guys. One of the early shows was about you guys. And I was like, I got to find this stuff, and finally found the bottles. And I was like, oh, this is freaking awesome. No wonder Daniel loves this stuff so much.
Cool.
So I tried them first about a year ago at the first Bastards Ball was my first introduction to Andalusia. And I've been singing praises about your whiskey ever since. It is beautiful.
Well, I appreciate it, guys, for sure.
Okay, so I guess if you want to just tell us about your distillery itself and the process and what you kind of, obviously no kind of still use, but just talk about like what's your still's name, all that good stuff. And
for sure.
All the nerdy cool stuff.
For those in the chat, I'm sipping on the Andalusia Triple Distilled first.
Okay, yeah, and I'll kind of specifically talk about that one a little bit as well.
Okay.
So we're out in the country here. We're about 5 miles outside of a small town. And so we're off the grid water-wise. So all those whiskeys that you're trying are all made from 100% rainwater. We've got a massive rainwater tank on site, and so we'll collect all the water off our building. And 3 years now, we have been able to sustain ourselves all on rainwater. So that's kind of the first component that we like to talk about, the water. It presents, a nice, clean blank canvas essentially for us to do with what we like. We find it's really appropriate for most steps in the whiskey making process. So yeah, that's kind of the water side of it. The malt, we take sort of a brewer's approach to our mash bills. It's traditional, in single malt whiskey to really kind of just stick with a Maris Otter or a Golden Promise. Those are fantastic malts, but we take more of a brewer's approach and throw in a lot of different specialty malts. So we're from Vienna and Munich malts to caramel malts, up to chocolate and roasted barley, and we also do all of our own roasting, and so that allows us to play with some different different color ranges, all the way from, like I said, a light crystal to we can even do a roasted barley in house. Just with a little coffee roaster. We basically just bought a commercial coffee roaster, a home coffee roaster, I should say.
That's awesome.
And we're doing a couple of pounds at a time, and we'll just run that thing all day, and it really makes the distillery smell nice also. So,
I bet.
So the mash bill again is more of kind of a brewer's approach. When I first got into distilling, had a lot of folks telling me that specialty grains don't do anything in whiskey, that flavors don't come through, and I think that was kind of conventional wisdom for a long time. And while it's true that the colors of the specialty malts don't come through like they would in a beer, the flavors definitely do. And so we tune those mash bills for example, the Stryker is a smoky whiskey, so we'll add some roasted barley, which will add kind of a roasty character, which we feel goes good with that smoky flavor. So yeah, that's kind of our philosophy on the malted barley. We use as much Texas malt as we can. There's not really enough of it quite yet in the world, in the States, to supply us, and price is still really high. But as that industry develops, we'll eventually be all 100% Texas malts when we can.
Awesome.
Yeah. So soon enough.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'll just give a shout out here real quick to our friend Brian over at Pitface Barbecue. Makes all the amazing barbecue that we have over here at times. So always glad to give him a shout out. And Eric Evanson just came in, so stop real quick. So today we got home those whiskey gifts. So Eric sent us this Johnny Walker Selects Cask 10-year rye cask finish, which I'm very excited about. I've never seen before. And the Lagavulin Nick Offerman edition. So thank you very much, Eric Evanson. This is freaking awesome. Can't wait to review these.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate that.
Okay, so back to your malt. So does each one of these have multiple? Is it just a taste for you, or how many different malts usually go into each of them? Or is each batch a little bit different when you do?
Yeah, good question. Each one is going to be different. Something like the triple distilled, we're going to rely a lot heavier on the base malt on that one. That's one whiskey that we want to be approachable, a little lighter in character, a little lighter in body and flavor. So we're not adding a lot of aggressive specialty malts on that one. Typically, if we are, it's going to be like a Vienna or a light Munich, just to give a little more richness without too much intensity. And so as we get kind of more intense on the flavored whiskey, flavor of the whiskey, then we'll kind of ramp up the specialty malt also. The triple distilled doesn't have any smoked malt either, so it has a pretty basic mash bill compared to the other whiskeys we do.
Okay. So what is the base malt you use for the triple distilled? Yeah,
so it's a Washington 2-row, and it's very similar to what you'll see most craft brewers using.
Okay. And then is every one a different percentage you're going to use each time, and just kind of depends on what's going on? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And so specialty malts were never intended to be a large portion of the mash bill.
Okay.
Most of them max out at 5 or 10% usage rates, and you really don't want to go more. That's a real common home brewer mistake, is to add too much specialty malt because you're just wanting all those cool flavors. Okay. But that can really be overdone. For example, a Guinness is only 10% roasted barley, and all that color and flavor comes from just that 10%. So it doesn't take much of this stuff to really make a big impact.
I didn't realize it was that little, and that made that kind of a crazy impact. Okay, well, that's good to know for future reference. Holy crap.
Well, the roasted barley is very dark, too. They'll roast it just like coffee, and it'll have a numerical color scale. And while the base malt might be 2 or Vienna malt might be 4, that roasted barley is 500. And so it's just way off the scale color-wise. And those colors obviously won't translate into color in whiskey, but will translate into flavor in the whiskey for sure.
Wow. Okay. Now, do you make all of them on the same still though?
We do.
Just pass it through 3 times rather than 2 on that one?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we've got a very traditional copper pot still that was made by a fine Southern gentleman deep in the Ozarks of Arkansas, and it was probably one of the first, legal still maker in his family, I'm sure. And so
that's awesome.
He does a lot of home stills. I'll do a shout out. He actually does a great website and a lot of great home stills of coppermoonshinestills.com. So Colonel Wilson is his name, and builds a great still.
Very cool. Go check out Colonel Wilson.
Definitely.
So he got his name for doing reenactments of Civil War.
Oh, awesome!
And I'm sure we can imagine what side the Colonel is on. So
I can only imagine being on. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
So it's a perfect still for making rich, full-bodied, flavorful whiskeys, and that we can dip in a little bit to rums and brandies as well with that still.
Very cool. What's the name of your still? You got a name for it?
She doesn't. Yeah, no name for her.
No,
but she's a female.
Yes.
That's funny.
So Donald Rance is asking what the flavor profile of the triple distilled is. It's Irish-like, but it's definitely Texas characteristics as well. There's a heat to it, and I attribute some of that to the 50%.
That's good.
But I also attribute that to just Ty being a really good whiskey maker. And being able to pump a lot of flavor into his beverages and knowing the flavor profile that he's looking for. It's like he was saying, it's light and approachable, but it's still very, very. The flavors that are there are very prominent, and they're very Irish in style.
Yeah, and I guess it's still relative. When I say light, I guess I'm comparing that to my other whiskeys.
That's right.
But compared to Jameson, it's way heavier than something like a Jameson.
Way heavier.
So yeah, and we feel it has a little more American character to it, which I mean, like vanilla specifically, and some of those kind of American whiskey flavors that you would get. That's actually a combination of new and used fill, and so we're looking primarily for once used barrel, aging for that whiskey. But we do blend in a little bit of new barrel also. We do basically a blend. When we make, let's say, 3 barrels, we'll fill 2 empty, 2 used and 1 new for a blend later on, because we want a little bit of that vanilla and some of that American whiskey character to it.
Okay. Eric Evanson wants to know, how many liters or gallons does your still put out?
Yeah, great question. So it holds 250 gallons of wash, and it'll produce about 50 gallons of spirit when we run it.
Nice. Okay. So no Troy. Then Troy wants to know, how long does he run the reflux for?
Okay, yeah. And so it's a basic pot still. And so our first runs we call stripping runs, because we just take everything that comes off of the run. There's no cuts going on there.
Ooh, okay.
That's about 3 hours. And then our next run, if it is a double distilled whiskey, that's a much slower run. And our final run that includes the cuts will be about 8 hours.
Okay. Awesome. See, Donald, do it now.
I was going to say, we're able to combine, like basically we'll do 4 first runs, and then we'll combine the alcohols of all 4 of those first runs into a collective second run. So when you're doing 4 batches, it doesn't take 8 runs to do 2 runs, it takes 5. And so we're basically able to save. Also, wouldn't be able to fit such a small amount back into the still because you're concentrating the quantities and the alcohols. And so if you start with 250 gallons, you've only got 50 gallons made. And so you would need more to put back in, just to have a minimum amount. So yeah, it's usually about four back together.
That's certainly a smart way to do it. And then see here, Donald also wants to know, have you thought about adding unmalted barley to the triple distilled, a Texas Irish style single pot still?
Yeah, great question. If you can get your hands on a bottle of White Pearl, which was our original unaged triple distilled whiskey, it actually did have some unmalted barley. Some of our first batches did. We did some experimenting with unmalted barley, a little unmalted wheat. And what we found is it just really didn't fit our mash tun that we have. Our mash tun is a single infusion mash tun, and if you any home brewers out there, that just means the mash goes in and there's no heat can be applied to the mash vessel. We pretty much just have to take, we have hot water and grain, and you're stuck with whatever mash temperature you get. It doesn't have any heating elements or anything. And when you're doing unmalted grains, it's really best to do step mashing, and so that means mashing in at a much lower temperature, and then starting to raise the mash temperature with rests along the way. And that's going to be a lot more appropriate mash scheme for an unmalted barley mash bill. And since we couldn't do that, we found that the unmalted barley and wheat that we were adding was just going to waste. It wasn't converting. We weren't getting the conversion in the mash. Even though there's massive amounts of enzymes, it's just, it was just a total waste to us. So we're all single malt now.
Good reason then. Okay, let's see here. Arthur Lopez wants to says, please tell Ty he's a beautiful distillery and should give Tommy a raise. That man was so welcome this past Saturday.
That's great. Tommy needs to give me a raise, I think. So yeah, Tommy's my business partner. So we we formed Andalusia together. He and I were employees at Real Ale Brewing Company, and I was a brewer there and did some cellaring and kind of helped get the Real Spirits program off the ground. And Tommy is a master's in microbiology, and so he ran the lab up at Real Ale, in the laboratory, and so that was we were a good match there. So yeah, told him to give you a raise, I said.
That's awesome. Okay. See, Patrick's question.
Hey, Patrick.
That's right. You know him. Yeah.
Arizona.
So I guess some experiments with the mash in the future, or just trying to do more finishing experiments like the PX and various Stryker releases.
Yeah, great question. So they're very different projects. You know, when you do a project that has an interesting mash, you're looking at a 2 to 3 year waiting time on that project. And
wow.
And when you're doing a finishing, you can have one of those out in 3 months, and from idea of inception. So they're really different approaches to the projects. And we've got some both going. For example, some different things we have going on our mash bills. We have a batch of super peated Revenant, and so it has about 6 times the amount of peated malt that our normal Revenant does. Also a super smoky batch of Stryker, so similar approach there. You know, we've got some whiskey aging in 100% maple syrup barrels, some fun stuff that's going to be very long term. And you know, that's the kind of I like those projects. You plan them, you really geek out on them, you execute the plan, and then you literally just forget about it for a couple years. You know, you remember it for a little while, but after a few years have passed, you sort of have to remind yourself of what you did. You go back and look at your notes, and so it's kind of fun to, you know, unearth some of these projects after that amount of time.
Yeah, I bet. That's
my face lit up when you said super peated.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like super peated, super smoky.
Look for that one very soon, possibly even before Christmas.
So where do I sign up for that one? That sounds great. And also, Texas Whiskey Life, which of course is Josh and Gretchen's channels in here. So hey, Josh and Gretchen.
Hey guys.
I'm going to move on to the Stryker, the original 50% Stryker that's available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regular. Okay. Yeah. So what can you tell us about Stryker and all the cool stuff about Stryker?
Yeah, so Stryker we feel is our one chance to be relatively innovative. You know, Revenant Oak and the Triple Distilled are very traditional whiskeys, or try to follow traditional styles and techniques. Whereas Stryker, we're doing what we feel craft brewers have done for a long time. Craft brewers traditionally take you know, old worldly styles of beer and then bring them home and kind of make them their own, sort of like an IPA. An IPA was a you know, mild, relatively hopped British beer until it came to the west coast of the U.S. and it became this insane over-the-top hoppy thing. And so what we did with Stryker is we imagined what Scotch would be like if it was originally made in Texas. We don't have peat here, you know, and so what would we use? We would use barbecue woods like oak and mesquite and applewood. And then what kind of barrel would we use? We would probably use a new barrel. That's just what American whiskey usually is, just with the heritage of bourbon in the U.S. And so we really wanted to sort of make what we lovingly call our Texas Scotch.
Definitely. Now, is it new oak for all of your products?
Nope. So new oak for the Stryker.
Just Stryker.
There's a combination of new and used for the Triple Distilled, and the Revenant Oak is only used barrels.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I've seen a couple of questions in the chat pop up about distribution of your product. First was Charles Ashworth asking about it being the Triple Distilled being in Arkansas, and now I'm seeing another one about Stryker from Jimmy from Stryker, distribution of that one.
Yeah, so right now we are distributed only in the state of Texas, and that'll probably remain for a couple of years, I imagine. We've just switched distributors from a very small distributor to one of the largest distributors in the country. And so we're kind of going through that switchover transitional period right now, and just, you know, a little bit of bumps getting to a much larger company. And so right as the Texas Monthly article came out and a lot of press about our distilleries came out is when our switchover was occurring. And so we're definitely having some inventory issues right now, especially in some of the larger stores like Total Wine and Specs. But we're going to be in a lot of mom and pop independent stores for sure. But unfortunately, to our friend in Arkansas, it is going to be a couple more years before we can be out of Texas. And that's just because we're a grain to glass distillery. I mean, if we wanted to
I'd rather
blow this
you
brand up,
continue to focus on quality, Ty. Don't worry about making more of it right now. Just focus on the quality. You're doing such a great job with it.
we can't buy more, we can't order more, and so everything we do is several years out. And so even if we wanted to really blow this brand up and be the Tito's of Texas whiskey, that would be pretty impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't make it 24/7. That's for sure.
Yeah. Can't just order more. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Our barbecue man says that he wants you to know how much he loves your tie-in with barbecue woods on the Stryker. It's a very tasty Texas whiskey.
Cool. I appreciate it.
Whiskey.
We definitely take a sort of a layering approach to our barbecue woods. We feel that oak is the backbone and the real body and the real driving force. And the apple or fruit woods that we might have are going to be, a nice flavoring agents. And the mesquite is an accent. Mesquite is a very powerful wood and a very, very strong smoke. And so we feel by layering those in proper proportions, we can really get some of the flavors we want.
All right. Yeah. So you said
I love the Stryker.
Yeah. So on the Stryker, what did you say was the what's the flavoring grade on the Stryker in particular, or does it matter if I tell you like what batch or something on it?
Yeah. You're talking about the grains, the mash bill.
Yeah.
Yes. And so primarily, obviously 2-row. That's going to have the most complex mash bill. We'll have some Munich malt, Munich 30. We'll have a little bit of crystal malt, and then really probably the ones providing the most flavor is the roasted barley. We'll roast barley to a 400 or 500 scale on a color scale, and just by adding 4 or 5 pounds, to almost a 1,000-pound batch, you'll get a substantial amount of color and flavor from that. If you can imagine our wash or our beer, whatever you want to call it, is probably a lot like a strong brown ale, if that makes sense. And so all of the, kind of those chocolatey roasted color flavors that come along with a brown ale would then transfer to the whiskey.
Okay. Very cool. All right. I guess the natural progression then is, so one of my buddies, Pete, went down to see you guys and brought me back this Cadillac wine, French oak one. So what can you tell us about this cool bad boy?
Yeah. So we started doing some cask finishing, and so the whiskey will get its normal 2-year minimum. In this case, in a brand new barrel for the Stryker, and then we're getting some cool different wine barrels. And so Cadillac, I didn't really know anything about Cadillac until we had the opportunity to buy this barrel. It is an official wine growing region in France. It is an AOC, and it's in the state of Bordeaux, right near the town of Bordeaux, and it is bordering kind of the same river right along there, but it's maybe a couple hundred acres, the entire wine growing region. So that's why it's not very well known.
Okay.
But it is a white grape dessert wine. So very much probably like a sherry, white port, something like that. I still have never been able to taste any Cadillac. I'd love to try some.
That was my next question.
There's a line on Cadillac.
Yeah.
Love to try some, but I doubt very little of it's exported. And so
I'll see what I can't do for you.
Do it. Yeah. I need to also need to recharge that Cadillac barrel. So I need a little more Cadillac wine to do that. So a little for sipping and a little for barrel maintenance as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, since Will's a wine somm, that would be great, because I would like to know what this Cadillac tastes like too, because I knew it was French wine, but I didn't know that's what it was. That's really quite cool. We'll have to definitely get a ball.
The smell is very different.
One of the fun things about all the cask finishing is that I've got to learn about sherry and a lot more things about tawny port. And sherry to me was that nasty cooking wine that my mom had in her fridge. And we just don't have good sherries, really access to many of them here in the States. And so it was fun to finally hunt some good sherries down and try those, because I feel like if I'm going to use a barrel, I'd like to know what that product is at least before I put the whiskey in it. It may not be something I want to drink straight all the time, but it may be something that contributes good flavor to the whiskey.
Oh, that's yummy.
Yeah.
On the palate, they're a lot more similar than they are on the nose. On the nose, I'm getting a lot more the wine fruitiness, the wine sweetness, and a lot less of the smoke on the Cadillac finish of the Stryker. But then on the palate, all of that smoke just comes barreling back through, and it's just as lovely as the normal Stryker is, if not maybe even a little bit better because of some of those sweeter notes coming through as well.
I feel that batch. I'm not sure if it was the batch or if it was the Cadillac barrel. Was definitely very strong on cinnamon and baking spices, and a little more than normal actually. So I don't know if perhaps that was a high proof aging or something like that, maybe, or what. But yeah, I got a lot of that nice cinnamon and baking spices character.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely with a nice sweet smoke.
Mm-hmm.
I hear a lot of like the cask strength Lefroy smoke you get sort of reminds me a lot of that. That's
Cool.
really, really good. I really like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Can't go wrong.
That's quite yummy.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So when you said you're having an even smokier version of Stryker come out, so what makes it smokier?
Yeah, so I talked about some of the percentages of specialty malt. We actually have a pretty low percentage of smoked malt in our mash bill.
Oh, okay.
Our still and the way we do our cuts are very effective at picking up smoke. So without giving specific numbers, it's definitely less than 10% of our total mash bill is our smoked malt. Now we're smoking our own malt, so I don't have ppm numbers, I don't have phenol numbers, and so this stuff could be off the chart smoky, and that's maybe why we don't need to use much. So, but it doesn't seem that different than some of the smoked malt we bought. But it's amazing how much smoke characters comes through. So on some of those extra ones, we'll just add, I have to look at the numbers, anywhere from 4 to 6 times the amount of smoked malt. So we might be up in the 30 or 40% of the total mash bill as smoked. But it's interesting. I'll try other whiskeys sometimes from some other distilleries that use 100% smoked malt, and the whiskeys, it might be smoky, but nothing crazy. And I think it's our still that really picks up those rich, oily, smoky characters really well.
So did you have the stills specifically designed, or did you just tell the guy kind of what you want to do and he made it, or how'd that work with the still?
We didn't. It was our first, distillery. I knew a little bit about what we wanted, but, not a lot of details. And so he had a couple different designs that we could look at. And, we basically wanted a simple pot. He calls it a Missouri style of still, which there might be some tradition to that name there. And it basically just has kind of a simple hat on top that expands vapor and then contracts the vapor back. And nothing too fancy though. No column, no windows, no chambers.
Okay.
Just very simple, but all copper. Every bit of it is copper. The condenser and everything. And so I think that's
a major factor since it's all copper compared to a lot of them you see at steel and copper.
Absolutely. The more copper, the better. There have been studies that indicate that the placement of copper in certain places is much more important than other places.
Right.
But I figured while you're at it, you might as well do all copper and just get a lot more of that contact. You might have a decent amount of contact, but while you're running your still, it gets dirty, and things collect on the copper, and sometimes it gets very dirty even during one run, and so a lot of that copper might get covered up, and so I think more copper the better, just in case you need a little more contact.
So how often do you have to clean your still?
What we'll do is we'll do stripping runs. We'll clean it every week, and so we'll do stripping runs at the beginning of the week, and then we'll clean it, and then we'll do our finishing runs of those stripping runs. So we'll make sure that the still is very clean for that final run, especially.
You want to highlight Captain's comment real quick?
Let's see, sure. All right, she says we'll shoot for before Christmas, but how close? And is it going to be there just after Turkey Day to try and come and get?
Man, I knew I shouldn't give any predictions. Man, I apologize. We can't predict any release dates at this time. A lot of it's going to be with label approval through the TTB and through TABC, and so we've got to deal with all that. And so
it was worth a shot.
It was a great try, man. I shouldn't have said anything because I know that they would want a more date. My desire is to have it out by Christmas, but we'll see. We'll see how the realities of life deal us here.
Makes sense.
But we will have plenty of that PX cash, when we get to that stuff here in a minute, we have plenty of those that PX sherry finished up for the holidays.
Awesome.
I'm excited to go back through those again here in a little bit.
Okay,
Cool.
so let's talk about the Reverend Oaks. So tell us all about this.
Yep. Okay, so we picked the name. Revenant is a kind of a ghost or a spirit, and so we are reusing old barrels that might be dead to, let's say, a bourbon distillery that can no longer use them. So we feel like we're giving that barrel new life, and so that's kind of where the name comes from. And the whiskey itself is just a real traditional peated Scotch style whiskey. You know, we can't call it Scotch. Obviously, it was not made in Scotland, but if it was, it would qualify as Scotch. It meets all their requirements. Double distilled in a copper pot still. We do a little bit of specialty no malt in this one, not quite as much as the Stryker. But the big thing that we can really claim on this guy is we do our own peating. And when I say peating, we do our own smoking for the peated malt. There's not that many peated whiskeys coming out of America right now. And the ones that are, most certainly are ordering peated malt from Scotland. And there's nothing wrong with that. They make
Or Ireland.
or Ireland. Nothing wrong with that. They make excellent malts. But we really wanted to have full control of all of our smoke flavor and intensity levels. And so since we already had our smokehouse for the Stryker, it was just about sourcing peat. And that was not easy. Finding someone to ship dirt across the world is not very easy. And so we finally found it, believe it or not, in a retail application for people that grew up in Scotland and Ireland. And they're used to burning peat in their fireplaces at home. That's their fuel source there. And so when they move here, they want to order that peat, and so they can burn it in their fireplace, and it's nostalgic and it reminds them of home. And so we found peat in bricks, and so we're able to order peat from Ireland. And just by burning the peat and smoking the grain for 24 hours, it gets that lovely, oily, phenolic, that really unusual smoke that really comes from nothing but peat. I mean, it's really hard to describe. It's peaty.
Oh, it's beautiful too.
Yeah,
This is not as peaty as I like to go way over the deep end.
Sure.
But this is still very, very good.
Yeah, I'm not a peat guy. I'm becoming more and more so. My business partner Tommy, he's like you. He's loving the Ardbegs and Lafroigs, and we sort of met in the middle on this one. It's a little too much for me, not enough for him, and so we decided to stop right there.
Yeah.
Well, I guess your heavy peat will solve that problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
That sounds like it's going to be amazing. Also, Eric wants to know: are you guys thinking about adding another still anytime soon, or?
Yeah. So the next still we get will probably be a stripping still.
Okay.
And so right now we're doing all of our distillation, the stripping runs and the finishing runs on one still, and that's just not really a great practice. You'll want your stripping still to be a little bigger than your finishing still,
Sure.
because you can do stripping runs much faster, and the batches are going to be a little bit larger that you're dealing with. So what we'd like to do, we've got a 250 gallon stripping still, so we'd like a 400 to 500 gallon. A 250 gallon still right now. And what we would like is a 450 to 500 gallon stripping still, and then we can use our current copper still for only finishing.
Are you
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Are you thinking of doing something like a column still, or are you thinking of doing another pot still?
I think we'll probably stick with pot, just because we're looking for those rich, flavorful, oily whiskeys. Even if it is a stripping run, we feel like it'll be better, to go with a pot. They're definitely less efficient, but feel for the style of whiskey. I feel it would probably be too much of a dramatic change in our products too if we tried to use anything but a pot still, even for stripping.
Yeah.
And now that we've kind of have our fans enjoy our rich whiskeys, they definitely don't want to go Canadian or anything on it. So.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
That's why I like your whiskey. It's nice and oily and heavy. And
Yeah,
that's why I love it.
I appreciate that answer, sir. I really do. That's what I was.
Well, our whiskey mentors are Balconians, and so we're still not quite the rich, oily bombs that those guys are, and their whiskeys are so amazing and rich and meaty and umami, And so, yeah, those are our mentors for sure. We're trying to be
I
like
don't
that.
know, man. We're going to get into these PX here in a minute that are a little bit higher proof. I think the fact that you put everything out at 50,
makes me really happy.
it's really wonderful because you're not putting it out at 40, and that makes me just super happy.
Yeah,
but
exactly,
if you were putting things out at cask strength, I think you'd have a little bit more of the oiliness, like I remember in the PX.
And when we started the plans on the distillery, we made the commitment. I think we started with ideas of maybe 90 proof, and we made the commitment to 100 proof. And I'm so glad we did, because people are wanting higher and higher proof stuff all the time.
Absolutely.
And these decisions were made years ago, and so yeah, I'm very glad we did. 100 proof gives you the opportunity to add a little bit of ice or add a little bit of water, do with the whiskey what you will, and then you don't have an over diluted product. Once you add a little water to an 80 proof whiskey, it's going to be watered down pretty quickly, or a little bit of ice, to the point that I don't enjoy it anymore. It's obviously everybody's taste up to themselves, but yeah, you can definitely over water whiskey.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. Yeah. Plus, like the fact that you guys' price point is fantastic for 100 proof craft distillery at $50. It's perfect.
Thank you, man.
Because there's so many you get that are craft distilleries that are $50 and it's 40. It's not that great. This stuff is fantastic. So
we like to say it's about 20 drinks and for 100 proof whiskey, so not too bad. Yeah.
No, you're right. It's not bad at all. That's a valid point. Can't go to a bar, that's for sure, for that price.
Trey Kuntz is asking about the PX bottles and if they're available in 750s individually. No, they're just available in 375s in a 3-pack.
Yep, and
that's the way they are being released.
And we want to do that to really kind of have an added value experience for the customers, so they can do the side-by-side. The side-by-side is really valuable. Even if one of those whiskeys isn't your favorite whiskey, I think doing the side-by-sides is going to be so much more valuable and educational to folks, to really see what the common denominator is, see what the differences are. And, if you really have, if you're unsure at all what sherry does to whiskey, that 3-pack will definitely teach you something.
Oh, and the mash and drum just came in. Hey, Jason, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. So Donald says he thanks you for sticking to the pot still, even about the Canadian comment. You haven't had a good Canadian yet. Well, it's hard to come by, Donald. I mean, what do you expect?
Yeah, I'm sure there's many, but they don't send them to us.
Don't come to the country.
Yeah, they don't export them.
Patrick Cohn says the three are really amazing blended together as well.
I've heard that. And so we had the Texas Whiskey Trailblazers got a little sneak preview of the gift set a few months ago, and got to get a little taste of it. And by the end of the day, that was sort of the fun thing to do, was to blend your samples together. And you know what? They're all sort of in the same family. It's not like you're blending rye and wheat whiskey or something. It definitely makes sense why that would work.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll have to do that. Combine them at the end here tonight. That seems like a good idea. I like this plan. I like blending things in general, so sounds good to me.
The smoke will likely take over, and then you'll get this nice marriage of peat and oak. So, yeah.
Perfect. All right.
We like smoke here on this channel. Well, the two of us you have tonight really enjoy peat, or really enjoy smoke on this channel. So
I think she was sick on the proper night. So
no, she really wants to be sick next Monday when we have what do we got going on next Monday? Isn't that
next Monday is Compass Box.
Oh, okay. The following will be
2 weeks later. After that, December 9th is Isla Night.
She doesn't want to be around for that one. That's when she really wants to be sick. She really loves your product, Ty.
Cool.
She's not a huge fan of the peat, but she really loves your product. So she's actually very bummed to be missing this tonight.
Cool.
Oh, Eric.
I am saving her plenty of whiskey that Matt poured me, and I'm hoping we'll probably be doing some actual reviews on these pretty soon as well.
For sure. Yeah, Eric wants to know if you're doing any malted or toasted ryes at all. Any plans?
Yeah, good question. So our system really limits us to barley. And so we are doing a grain off fermentation and distillation. And so what that means is when we make our mash, just like in brewing beer, right at the stage of mash is when we'll separate the liquid from the grain. And barley is really the only grain that can do that. We might be able to add a little bit of rye to a malt whiskey, Let 10% maximum. But because what will happen, rye is full of glucans and proteins that aren't in other grains, and so it'll gum up your mash. If you're a home brewer, it's called a stuck mash.
Yeah,
and so
really
you won't be able to run the lauter and strain your liquids. And so the closest thing that we could ever do that wouldn't be malted barley would be something like a 50-50 wheat and barley whiskey, kind of like a Hefeweizen mash bill.
that sounds good.
That'd be
Yeah,
cool.
I think the malt would probably still dominate the wheat, but it'd probably just kind of be like a soft, sweet, nice, easygoing malt whiskey. I'm guessing. I don't know, but that's kind of what my impression is.
Now I want to blend some Lone Elm with some Andalusia.
That came to my mind right away. Some Lone Elm and some Triple Distilled.
Seriously, I feel like that would be a really good flavor profile as well.
Yeah.
With the amount of richness that they get and the amount of richness that you guys get in your flavors, that might just pair really well together.
But that's probably, that little amount of wheat. We couldn't go any more than that, but you could still probably strain your mash at that point. But all of our equipment, our pumps, our heat exchangers are meant to handle liquid. So after that mash is done, it's liquid from then on out. We wouldn't be able to ever put mash into our still. It would be a nightmare. We have electric heating elements and no agitator in the still. And so it's just the motion of the boil that is kind of keeping it moving inside and agitating it. And so if we had a mash in there, it would just scorch and burn. So we really can only deal with liquids, same for our pumps and heat exchangers and such. So, that's fine with us. We feel there's a lot of possibilities out there in the world of malt whiskey, and we don't feel constrained at all. There's a lot of other fun stuff we'd like to do, but like I said, I personally just not a huge bourbon guy. I feel like I can appreciate one, but rarely enjoy one. So that's kind of where I'm sitting with, and ryes and then it's kind of a similar family to me as the bourbons.
You know what? You're doing something you love, and I say stick to it, man. You're doing a great job.
Cool, thank you.
Well, I'm gonna do your experiment real quick because why not?
You doing the suicide?
Yeah, I'll take the Lone Elm and the Triple Distilled and see what we get.
Oh, great! Oh, that one, good deal.
Oh no,
their intense aging might dominate a little bit, but hopefully the wheat will come through and be able to learn something. Their whiskey is freaking dark.
Yeah, we had one when Brandon was here like a month ago that came out. It was basically you couldn't see through it, and it came out 59.5.
Golly, like some of their 5-year stuff is just and more is unbelievable. Every time they do a post online, I comment darkness, because that stuff is just pure darkness.
It's so nice. Oak. Super oily. The wheat definitely does come through because it's a cask. This particular one I added is 53.8%.
Okay.
That's delicious combined. I think I add a little bit more of the triple. Yeah, it's really super oily now, like crazy oily.
I think we just created a new product here.
Absolutely. This is quite nice. All right.
Ooh. Yeah. That's quite lovely.
I may have to make a bottle of this.
Yeah, right? Let it marry for a little while?
That's really good.
Yeah, it is.
I'll put that away for later, but yeah.
Highlight Patrick Cohn's comment while we sit here and talk about this. So Ty has something to do.
It says, what percentage of what Ty does came from knowing brewing versus what he had to learn new to do distilling? Yeah,
good question. Luckily, we got into malt whiskeys and not into something like bourbon, where I probably pretty much would have had to start over. But, having the brewing experience got us, the water, the grain bill, the recipe formation, the mashing, the fermentation, pretty much everything but distillation. It's definitely a very important step. And so that was really, really what we had to learn. So, I mean, I'd say it was probably 75% that we felt really confident with our knowledge and our experience base, and sought out local distillers, Treaty Oak, Ranger Creek, Balcones, Garrison Brothers, and they all graciously let us spend a little time in their still house and kind of learn how to run a still. And at the end of the day, finally you have to do it on your own. it's funny. We still have we don't have many old barrels, but we have barrel 1 and 2 still.
That's awesome.
Most distilleries do.
With liquid inside of them.
Yeah, oh yeah, and
Okay.
1 and 2 are usually not your best barrels.
Yeah.
I hope you get better as you go along, and so yeah, 1 and 2 are pretty decent, but nothing to write home about for sure. I don't think we'll be releasing them anytime soon.
I think I remember Tawakero talking about the same thing. They still had barrels 1 and 2 are still full. They don't have any plans of doing anything with them.
But they do taste delicious.
The Westland, same thing. I remember going to Westland, and they've got their barrel number 1 in Westland in Seattle, and same thing. Obviously, it's not their favorite. So, yeah, like I say, I hope you're getting better as you go along. So it's
Matt,
not a surprise.
Throw like 3 drops of Stryker in that mix, or just like
Ooh.
a tiny little pour of Stryker in that mix.
Water in it, it like explodes with the water alone.
Yeah.
I'll throw some Stryker in there too, just to see what happens. I like it.
And then we'll put that off to the side so that we can move on to the PX, the product that Ty makes.
Let's see here.
Oh no, I love good blending and fun.
Yeah, what's amazing?
I don't know. This feels like an alliance series just waiting to happen.
Oh, really? Is how awesome all the distilleries are with each other. It's like have no problem showing everybody around and how to do things, which is so great in this state. Just the true Texan way to be friendly and teach each other things rather than being stingy and trying to hoard everything for themselves.
For sure.
Open and honest and just friendly.
I think the Texas Whiskey Association and the Texas Whiskey Trail can take a lot of credit for that too. It wasn't an unfriendly environment, but I think people were more unfamiliar with each other, and so it was maybe an environment of skepticism. And but yeah, bringing everyone together for a common cause. It really does remind me of kind of the craft beer scene, which has always been a very friendly and communal scene, and I think we finally have that in Texas today in the spirits industry. Even with some of the distilleries that aren't doing whiskey, Revolution or distilleries like that, we still really have a kind of a common vibe and spirit. No pun intended.
See, Arthur Lopez wants to know what you think of the Balcones stills. He said he got to see them up close and personal, and holy cow.
They are fucking badass. I'll just say that, dude. I'm jelly. Yeah, I got to see them being craned in and installed, and right now there's a lot of stuff around them. They were in a very wide open space when they were first set in that space, and you really got to see them really well. And yeah, they're the largest pot stills in America. I'm not sure if they still are, but at the time they were. And so I think they're over 2,000 gallons each.
Holy shit.
Jesus.
2,000 or 2,500 gallons, something like that.
That's insane.
That's a huge still.
And from Forsyth, from the premier Scottish whiskey still maker. So I can't get any better than that. So hopefully one day Andalusia 4.0 might have those stills. We'll see.
That would be awesome.
Right. I always tell people we started with 2.0. We just went ahead and skipped 1.0. We felt like we had that one taken care of. So
yeah,
we started with 2.0.
Wow, that's damn. The funny thing is, I've been to a few. I've still never been to Balcones. I still need to get down there one of these days. Like every time I get invited, my kids have a freaking thing going on. It never fails. It's like
we've passed by Balcones how many times?
I know, but I'm always going to Austin. That's the problem.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you and me, man. We're gonna make a weekend of it.
I want to
not just the still and the people and the whiskey. They've got one of the coolest buildings. It's a historic weatherproof storage building that survived a tornado back in the 50s that destroyed Waco, and it was abandoned for many years, and it's got just these massive thick concrete pillars and walls, and it's way more space than they probably need, or well, I'm sure they'll grow into it, but yeah, it's badass.
They brought him in through the roof?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I guess that's what Arthur says.
Yeah, I'm sure they had to. Yeah.
Damn.
It's not uncommon for breweries to fly in tanks, so I'm not too surprised.
Nope, can't make. I haven't made it there, everybody. Sorry, I have not been to Balcones. I've been like that travesty. Can't get there. Just every time I'm trying to go on with my kid.
Heard that.
One of these days we will get there for sure.
All right.
You can do the old Chip and Joanna tour while you're there,
That too, or just stay and drink whiskey.
or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So-
I'm going to pour all three of these so that I can just kind of do what you were saying earlier as a back to back
I like this.
Yep.
on these. I'm just going to pour myself a tiny amount because I got to save some for the wifey.
Yeah.
I like to tell people that side-by-side tasting experiences are really some of the most valuable tasting experiences you can ever have. It's
Agreed.
very, very, very hard to taste something and then taste something else days or weeks later and compare those experiences. There's so many other factors involved in what you were tasting and where and when and who you were with and what you'd been eating. And so the true side-by-side is, I think, really one of the only ways you can really learn something. So, yeah, you can kind of get the common denominators or the differences between them and kind of really narrow it down and what the hell is that sherry.
Yeah, so speaking of that, so what type of sherry are you using for these? Is it the same for all three or is it different?
Yep. So we got 3 PX sherry barrels. That's Pedro Jimenez. It is a very rich, thick, sweet sherry. So sherries have a wide range. Fino is a very, very, we'll speak to this too, a very dry. I mean, like champagne dry.
Mm-hmm.
I really can't do them really. All the way up to some that are thick like syrup. They're so sweet.
Yep.
So there really is a lot of range in sherry. Typically the sherries that are whiskey aging barrels are going to be the sweeter ones. The Oloroso, the PX is really the big one. But I've not seen a lot of Fino sherry.
Don't they? Yeah, they kind of stay away from Tintafino. I don't know what that would do to whiskey. I think if you started off with like a really sweet bourbon and then went into something like a Tintafino, you could make some magic happen. But yeah, most people use Oloroso or PX for the reasons you're saying. They're nice and they're sweet and they're thick and they're viscous and they offer just a lot of flavor coming through into your product.
And I've got a Lafroig Fino that's delicious.
Yeah.
And so I tend to get a lot more of those nutty flavors and obviously the dark fruit out of those styles of sherry. And sherry's kind of an interesting animal. It's an oxidized wine that gets a lot of flavor from almost spoilage, a severe oxidation. And so it's where all those cool almond and nutty flavors come from.
And I'm picking that one up most on the Stryker on the first smell. Those almond and nutty notes are coming through most on the nose of the Stryker PX finish. That one to me, like I'm still smelling all of the smoke. I'm still smelling all of the wood smoke, but there is a very, very pure nuttiness that is popping out of the glass on this one.
I kind of feel that the triple distilled is a bit of a blank canvas for sherry, without that smoke or any other really dominant flavor forces. It's just bam, here's sherry, here it is, without a lot of competition. Whereas the other two finished whiskeys, the Stryker and the Revenant Oak, or perhaps you could maybe use the word more balanced or more integrated with the smoke and the sherry, a little more interesting perhaps. And then the Revenant Oak, I find, we picked an extra, not like a super peaty, but we picked an extra peaty barrel to put in the sherry barrel because we knew that it was going to be cask strength. We knew it was going to be big sherry bomb, and so we wanted some real smoke to stand up to all that. So you'll probably notice it's a little peatier than normal.
Okay. Ben wants to know.
I was just assuming that was his higher proof.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Have you guys thought about using port? Is what Ben wants to know.
Yeah, and so we've done it before. We did a tawny port finished Revenant Oak as our number 2 cask finish. We've done about 5. The PX series is number 5. So we've done 4 different cask finish series. We did a Malbec, we did a tawny port, we did Treaty Oak rum Stryker, and we did the Cadillac Stryker.
Nice.
All those are
Somebody in the
sold
chat
out and
earlier was
long
saying-
gone.
I was like,
I was
those
gonna say, somebody in the chat earlier was talking about the Malbec finish, and I was like, ooh, mouth watering.
Yeah.
I wonder if Josh has any of those left. If there's no one who might have them, it might be Josh. Try
Not to rat out Ryan, Joel also, he had at our recent anniversary party, we had a charity auction, and we auctioned off a set of series 1 through 4, all 4 bottles. And so, yeah, we'll hunt Ryan down and see if we can get some of his, because I don't even think I have some of those bottles.
That's funny. Ooh, look, Josh does have all of them. All right, good. Next
He
one.
does.
I just want a tiny taste. That'd be awesome.
Good man. Good man.
Oh, okay. I'm going in for my first sip of the PX finished triple distilled, put out at 119.16 proof.
That's a good question from Donald. Donald's in Canada, by the way, Ty.
Okay.
So obviously he can't get this. He would like to know how the triple distill compares to like a Bushmills 10 and a Podcastle or a Tullamore Dew. What do you think would be the closest to?
Yeah. Tough
None
one. Yeah, I know. I can't say I've had the second one very much. So I couldn't compare that one. Gosh, I almost take it more in the direction of, I hate to compare it to anything really, but because it's got that vanilla American character that these don't. But I take it towards the spots, if anything, some of the colored spots.
Yellow
maybe,
spot was
maybe green or yellow. But again, yeah, not a great comparison either. Especially if you did them side by side, they'd probably be very different. But
well, the yellow spot has the same. I would say the yellow spot probably has the same depth of character as your Andalusia triple distilled, but again, maybe a little bit different flavors. I think your higher proof helps out with your flavors, and then their longer age kind of helps out with theirs. But yeah, I would say that's pretty spot on. The yellow spot would be probably the closest Irish, maybe Redbreast cask strength.
I was going to say one of the Redbreast. They're all going to have more of that grainy, grassy character because of the unmalted grains that they're using.
Yeah, and that butter cookie.
Yeah, and we're just going to be a little more rich malty. We're going to have a little more malt character because of 100% malt, and just a little bit less of that grassy botanical flavor you can get out of those nice light Irish whiskeys.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, we'd have to do a bunch of comparisons, get a bunch of Irish out, and see what we could blend to make something that tastes.
Goodness.
Yeah,
I think the original white would have been a lot easier to compare to some of these because of the grain bill.
Okay, so let's see. The triple distilled comes in at 119.16. The Stryker comes in at 113.83, and the Revenant Oak comes in at 115.21. That's some beautiful cask strength whiskey. That is.
Thanks, man. We've lowered our proof range. When we first started, we were doing everything at 125 roughly. When you're young and barrels are expensive, you don't want to buy a lot of barrels, and so higher proof whiskey, you can fit more. You buy less barrels, and so we found that the particular flavor profile that we like is probably a little more like 115 to 120. So that's kind of where we're lying now. 125, we got a lot more of those cinnamon notes, the cinnamon and baking spices, which are nice, but when they dominate and they take over the vanilla, I feel that, it's just not my jam. It becomes a little too spicy and the spiciness adds almost to the heat of the whiskey, and as opposed to the sweetness of a vanilla from a lower proof.
Yeah, you pretty much seem to have nailed all these on the head as far as proof goes. I mean, these are freaking awesome.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, I can't. Wow. I remember trying the Bachelor's Ball, but of course, thankfully I tried those first thing before anything else that day, which was a good thing. But then after you're like, I don't know, I tasted a lot of amazing things, and you're like, good, not good was the thing you're left with that day, basically.
Yeah.
So now getting to try them again on a fresh, pretty much more or less fresh, but just off only Andalusia products, it's like, this is amazing how good these are.
Well, these were newly reconditioned sherry casks. They were incredibly expensive, shipped from Spain, and they, had that nice, thick, rich sherry in there. We were able to dump it out, fill the barrels,
Oh, nice.
but we got way more color and flavor than we ever imagined. I think that all three of those are sherry bombs. I mean,
Yeah, they are. They're
way more sherry than most sherry finished whiskeys are. So sherry's not your thing. Maybe wait for the next 3-pack because this one is a definitely in your face sherry. And if you're a sherry fan, you're gonna love these.
Yeah,
I really can't get enough. I'll just go ahead and just drink a glass of sherry. It's that. I really enjoy it that much.
It is very sherry, and it's really This is delicious. It's very nutty. The sherry. It's
the almond really comes through. It's almost like an amaretto, not the sweetness, not the candy aspect of it, but that nutty aspect of an amaretto.
It really is. That's a really good comparison. Yeah, it really is that nuttiness of the amaretto. Yeah,
sherry's kind of a cool thing. If I could talk about it a little bit, maybe Will can correct me when I make a mistake. But it is it's wine barrels that they don't fill completely. And so it's a fortified wine, but the barrel might be only about half full, and they want lots of oxygen exposure for this wine. They want it to oxidize. It actually grows a pellicle, which is a kind of a white crust.
Yep.
That is bacteria and wild yeast, probably mostly bacteria, and that pellicle limits oxygen exposure. So it does pick up some oxygen, but it's just not completely open to the air. I've seen a really cool photo of a cutout of a sherry barrel that had a glass head in the barrel. And they showed that it was half full and with this inch-thick layer of this white crust on top. So what this is very akin to is lambic beer brewing or any kind of wild beer brewing, like a Jester King beer or something like that. When their beers are fermenting in their barrels, they will have a pellicle just like that. And what can happen is if your beer gets too much oxygen exposure when you're doing a sour beer, you get all those nutty flavors. They're not desirable in the sour beer of the craft beer world, unfortunately. I like them, but typically they're not desirable. But you get those same oxidized nutty flavors. So sherry gets a lot of its color, a lot of its flavor and its color. It turns brown because of the oxidation too. So the brown color of sherry is not from the barrel aging; it's from oxidation, partially, if not mostly. And it's just really cool stuff. The more I learn about it, sherry used to be a really big thing, and it's unless you're in London, you're probably not going to find it much anymore. So it's a neat thing.
Yeah, I know. Whatever that we tried at Rapper's Ball, that sherry was good. Whatever that was. Is that the one you brought, Will?
I brought a couple of sherries to the ball.
Oh no, whatever it was, I liked it. I thought it was really good. I would drink that.
You people, everybody, all of you people watching, you need to drink more sherry so that I can finish more things in sherry. Hi, real quick question about the sherry barrels. How big were the butts?
Yeah, they were, I think, 250 liters, about 65 gallons.
Okay.
So they were big. They're not the big 100-gallon ones.
Giant ones. Okay.
But yeah, a little bit bigger than a normal wine barrel.
Okay. Were they shipped to you taken apart, or did you buy them full? Or
they were reassembled for us. So we were the first to use them after they've been reassembled and reconditioned.
Very cool.
But yeah, plenty of shockingly thick wine in there.
Yeah. These are all magical.
Thanks, man.
I'm having a hard time deciding which one I like the best.
I think I like the Stryker and the Revenant probably the better, but of course that's because I like smoke and peat. So
yeah,
I think
for me it's Stryker. I love the sherry intensity of the triple distilled, but I feel that the Stryker is so well integrated with the smoke. I think the smoke and the sherry play with one another and create new fun flavors, and it's just not quite so one dimensional. And since I'm not a peat guy, the Stryker wins out.
Captain Make It Happen's asking, besides the sherry finish, can Ty tell the rest of the class about the next triple pack release?
Absolutely. So we've got 2 more triple packs already lined up. Whiskey's already in the barrel. So the next one is going to be Mount Gay rum. So Mount Gay is the oldest rum distillery in the world. It's in
The very,
Barbados,
very
and
first
it's
one.
like 500 years old, something like that, 400 or 500 years old. And so we got 3 Mount Gay rum barrels, and so we got whiskey aging in those. And next is going to be, I actually have a visual for you here, Hack Madeira. And so Hack is a winery in the Houston area, and they are grandfathered in and are allowed to use the term Madeira. And so Madeira, like sherry and port, is a dessert wine that's really appropriate for aging whiskeys in, and so that's going to be the third one.
Except
So that's
Madeira
actually
is even, to me, Madeira is even better than all of the others. Madeira goes through a process of heating and cooling that actually allows it to stay shelf stable for a lot longer than sherry does. So you can actually buy an Oloroso or buy a Madeira bottle, and you can leave it out on your counter, use it for cooking, use it for sipping every once in a while, and it's going to stay for months and months and months without going bad. I love Madeira.
Now,
I don't know if you've had a chance to go to the distillery, Will, but if you do, check it out. They have an estufa there, which is the word for an oven. And so they have an oven that gets up to 140 degrees, and it holds 10 barrels or whatever, and they literally put their barrels of wine into an oven and bake it. They call it baked wine. So
Yes,
really interesting. Yeah, and through that oxidation process,
process,
it gets brown and nutty and all those fun things.
when our founding fathers talked about drinking wine, they were drinking Madeira. That's
yes, sir.
When our country was founded on the drinking of Madeira.
That is fact.
So that one you're using, is that a distribution up to DFW, the Hack? Is that so they can buy around here?
Man, good question. I know it's available at HEB in the Houston area. I'm not sure about Austin or DFW. I got this at the winery, so I have not tried to purchase it in distribution yet. But
where is this winery at?
It's in Santa Fe, near Houston.
Okay.
So yeah, right there, kind of the coastal region down there.
Because I don't think I've ever actually had Madeira on its own, so that'd be awesome to try that anyway.
And again, it's like sherry. Most Madeira that most people have had is some bad salted cooking wine from their fridge, and so it's probably a little more widely available than sherry is. I find Madeira is, but not quite as available as something like port. But definitely all sort of in a similar family.
Well, and like you were saying, there's all sorts of Texas distilleries that were grandfathered in that are allowed to call things Madeira. So.
True. Yeah, wineries. Yep, exactly.
So it's a big Texas thing here. A lot of Texans are making Madeira.
So I grabbed the amaretto just because to compare.
Yeah.
The sweetness not, but that nutty almond is definitely very, very similar.
Probably more the aroma. Yeah, you taste it; it's just so sweet. It's probably hard.
It's one of my
we don't have a whole lot longer before we need to come in for a landing, so I'm going to go ahead and mix these guys up and try the combo.
Do it.
We might as well, right?
Because, science.
Yeah, of course. Especially good science.
Tasty science.
All right, let's see how this goes. Now, that's what I was going to ask. So are these 3 only available at the distillery, or can you get them around the state?
Yes. Yep. Only at the distillery. Since this is our first 3-pack, we really this is kind of a test run. We're unsure of the market, the demand, all that. Luckily, since they were very large barrels, 250-liter barrels, and we had 3 of them, and that the gift packs are split bottles, we've got like 650 of those things. We're able to make quite a bit of those 3-packs. Future releases won't be as big. The Mount Gay rum barrel, instead of 650, may only produce 450 or something like that because they're much smaller barrels.
You said you got 4 of those?
3.
3 of those?
3 Mount Gay, and then 3 of the Hack Madeira. And so that'll be a common thing for us. I really like the side-by-side opportunity. I really feel it's educational for people to be able to try several similar products kind of next to one another at the same time, even if they're not all their favorite. I feel like it's important to be able to do that side-by-side experience.
Trey wants to know, what does the 3-pack cost?
It's $125.
Okay.
And it's definitely going to be the most expensive 3-pack, or probably the most expensive product we ever release. And we got up to that price by, the sherry barrels being that expensive, and cask finish and cask strength. That cask strength, I think, really seals the deal on the price point.
So you're getting a bottle and a half for $125 of cask strength whiskey from a good company that's making good product. I say it's a buy all day.
Yep. PX finished and the most expensive barrel in the world. And so, yeah, the PX barrels have become just impossible to find. It was just, Scotch makers looking for them.
Yeah.
Now all the bourbon
Everybody
guys
is.
want them. Beer brewers want them. So, yeah, instead of a $200 barrel, those sherry barrels were $1,000 barrels each. And so, that's why this 3-pack is going to be a little bit more than some of the future ones will be.
So on the rum pack, how big are the rum barrels, just to wonder?
Yeah, they're 53, so those are ex-bourbon barrels, and they are old and ragged and gray. They've been in the Barbados sun for years, probably, and possibly used multiple times.
Sure.
So we're not sure what product. I'm thinking it's going to be the Mount Gay XO rum is probably what the barrels were, just by looking at the age of the barrels and distillation dates and things. But if anybody's never tried Mount Gay rum and you're a rum fan, it's a fantastic rum.
Okay.
Yep.
Which Mount Gay rum would you suggest, and which one are you using?
Yeah, so their base product, which I think is a black label, something like that, is a fine entry whiskey, but it's that XO that I really prefer. It's a little bit step up. It's still affordable. I think they have some even higher price points they're kind of a little bit out of reach, I feel, but I think that XO is still at a pretty decent price point. It's going to be a little richer and a little more aged than their entry rum is.
Okay. So I guess we
Mount Gay
try that too.
Mount Gay actually ages their entry rum too, though, don't they?
They
all
do.
Of their,
correct.
all of their rum is aged. Okay,
Yeah.
That's what I
As
remember.
far as I know, there may be a white. I haven't seen it, but as far as I know,
I've not seen it here in the States.
Yep.
Hmm.
But yeah, found it in the 1400s or something crazy like that. They've got papers that go back that far. It's amazing.
Yes, it is.
Oh, Juliet Miranda's in. Good. If anybody hasn't checked out her channel, definitely do so. We had her as a guest a few weeks ago, and she was awesome. So thanks for coming in, Juliet. Appreciate it.
She does super fun live streams as well.
Yes, she does. They are very entertaining. You will not be bored. You will have a great time if you watch her live streams. They're hilarious.
I got to get out a lot of rants earlier today watching her live stream. It was fun.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, combining all three, this is delicious.
The nose is outstanding. I haven't even moved on to the taste yet. I'm just living in the nose right now.
Oh.
Well, maybe I shouldn't have wasted my time with a 3-pack, and I should have just mixed it all together and there's one there. Yeah.
But this way you can decide how much of each of the mix.
Oh, no.
I'll tell you what, I'd pay $100 for this and a $750.
All right, it's good to know. All right.
That he's got a valid point. You could probably sell a lot of $100 at a $750. So good together. So
and on that point also, another 3-pack that will be coming out with probably sooner than any of the other ones is just the core product 3-pack. So it'll be the 3 whiskeys, all 100 proof, not barrel finished, and it'll be something like $80, $90. It'll be a lot more approachable.
Oh. Now, will that one go out, or that just be distillery only too?
That will be distributed, yes.
That will be distributed. Okay, cool. Because I know, like you said, a lot of people are having a hard time, especially finding Stryker. Because Travis was in the chat, was here at the house on Saturday. He's like, can't find Stryker anywhere. I'm like,
the DFW area, quick shout out to probably Empire Liquors. Both their locations are going to have all of our products. I know that's kind of a specialized area of North Dallas, but if anybody's in that area, they'll have us today. Here within a few weeks, hopefully we'll be restocked at Total Wine and Specs.
Yeah, because that's where I'd gotten mine originally, was from Total Wine. And I got another one thing because my original Stryker is almost gone. It's like, you got to get a review before they finish this thing. I had to hide it from myself because I drank half a bottle in the first couple of weeks I had it. I'm like, this is freaking awesome. Because I can't think of another whiskey that really tastes anything like Stryker that I know of at all.
It really is a standalone. It really is. It lives in its own category. It's a glorious product.
We definitely had inspiration. Corsair, Ranger Creek Rimfire, and then the obvious one, Brimstone. we feel like we're probably right in the middle of all those. Brimstone is a real face melter. I love it, but it is powerful stuff.
Oh, it's
and
delicious.
They're not smoking grain. They're doing a little different technique, and so ours is definitely going to be a little more subtle. We wanted it to be a little more subtle. And then something like the Ranger Creek Rimfire, fantastic single malts, but I feel is even more subtle than ours. That whiskey is made from a mesquite smoked porter beer. And one thing we found is that if you want a smoky whiskey, that your wash kind of needs to be undrinkably smoky, or your beer that you're making it from. And so, that's an awesome beer. And so I find that's a pretty subtle smoked whiskey. So we're probably, I'd say, somewhere in between, all those. People compare it to Campfire sometimes. There's a lot going on in Campfire. But, somewhere in the middle of something Corsair does and something Balcones does.
What I'm hearing is
I think this is so far above anything Rimfire. I enjoy their product too, but to me, this is so far above anything that they're doing.
I think I should combine them all and make something.
Yeah, there you go. I guess that's what Campfire is.
Brimstone, put them all together.
Yeah.
What kind of deliciousness that makes.
I like to whenever I have a bourbon or a whiskey that maybe it's been gifted to me and I'm not crazy about, I'll mix it 1-to-1 with Brimstone, and all you taste is Brimstone, and it makes your bottle of Brimstone go twice as far. It's great. So I'm sure Jared didn't want me to say that, but
you know what? A couple of drops of Brimstone will really that'll change any whiskey you're drinking.
Great with. It's also great with Diet Dr. Pepper. It's freaking amazing. Smoky Dr. Pepper is awesome.
Wow.
Brad from Cask Strength is the one who said you should drop the Brimstone and the Ardbeg into it. It makes delicious Dr. Pepper.
Captain Make It Happen would like to know if the Texas Whiskey Trail Trailblazer discount extends to the 3-pack.
So the discount is only for merchandise. We cannot do a discount on alcohol. We can do if it's a Trailblazer special release. It will be. This one is not a special release. It wasn't. I think the Balcones whiskey is going to be a special release during this time period, and so that's kind of a rotating thing. They'll probably make their way back to us, and we'll do a Trailblazer exclusive whiskey. But yeah, our Trailblazer discount is only for merchandise, and then if it's going to be a whiskey, it'll be the Trailblazer exclusive when that happens.
Well,
fair enough. There are laws and such.
Yeah, with the Trailblazer, I think we're not allowed to apply that directly to alcohol, and so I think that's kind of how that works.
Interesting.
You get a free tour, and you'll probably get a free tasting. Is kind of how it works.
Okay.
I think you just answered this, but Ben Stahl just asked, are there Trailblazer exclusive whiskeys coming?
Yes, and so what they're going to do is they're going to rotate regions. Between the Hill Country region, the Houston region, and the Dallas-Fort Worth region. And so that's probably going to be about every 3 months or so. We feel like maybe every month might be a little bit overkill. Perhaps we'll see. I mean, if there's demands, we'll get them more often. But right now it's going to rotate between the different areas. I think the very first one that I've ever done was the Garrison Brothers pick. And then I think that we're going to be doing the Balcones pick next, and then it's off to Houston. So hopefully when we come back to Hill Country, they'll pick us, hopefully.
Well.
And then maybe we can release something like the Super Stryker or the Super Pete or something like that through an exclusive.
I certainly hope, and I'm pretty confident will be, that the Balcones Trailblazer only will be significantly better than, unfortunately, to say it's over Garrison's, because it's just not good. I hate to say that, but
I wish I could judge. I'm not a bourbon guy, but yeah.
I like their whiskey. I just don't like that one.
Yeah. I love what Garrison does. Their tours are excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's grain to glass. Their employees are awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
So I really love what they're doing. I wish I could say more about the bourbon, but since I don't really drink it, it's
right. No, I think they make really good bourbon. I just think, unfortunately, that was just off for whatever reason. Because I've been to the distillery. I think the distillery was great. They have some really cool products there, and I like their stuff a lot. Just not that particular one for whatever reason. Just really woody.
It's just not the best pick, I guess.
I guess. Oh yeah, they said they watered it down too from what it was originally supposed to be from the cask strength.
from the pick.
Yeah. So that's a different story that I don't know. I wasn't there. But I have heard that from who was doing it. So
Water can really mess with things.
Unfortunately.
Definitely does. Good and bad.
Yeah.
That's true.
How long do you usually take to add water into your whiskey to get it down to 50%?
Yeah, we are doing a little elevage now, especially now that we know that our original proof for some of our early barrels is a little higher than we want. Mm-hmm. So we're adding water to barrels now in the barrel storage area, even if they're not going to be dumped for months, to kind of bring it down more to that 115, 120. And that'll do two things. It won't change the whiskey to as if it was 150, 120, but it'll get all of those flavors from the entire proof range of 125 all the way down to 115. And so I think that's kind of exciting.
Do you think that while leaving it in the barrel and proofing it down, you're going to start pulling some of the wood sugars instead of the wood tannins?
Absolutely, we'll do that, and we'll get a much wider spectrum of flavors from the barrel. And so we'll do that. I'll drop it no more than a plate or two a day when I'm doing that. And then, we'll try to not drop more than, 10 points or something when we're doing the final proofing. But we'll take all day to do that. I'll get a big tank, get it spinning, and we'll just very slowly trickle rainwater in. And, we'll take 8 or 10 hours to drop probably no more than about 10 points. If it's more than that, we'll probably stretch it the next day.
Okay, that's cool.
Very cool. And then one other question I saw in the chat earlier that I kind of wanted to touch on. Somebody was asking about doing a Solara finish. Have you had any
doing
a Solara finish of any type?
I have
one of my favorite styles of whiskey.
That sounds cool as shit, to be honest. I have never done it. There's a Solera bourbon, a couple of Solera bourbons being made in the U.S. and obviously a lot of Solera wine, but
Glenfiddich 15.
Is that one? Okay, yeah. And I know somebody's got
one of my favorite whiskeys, favorite scotches, just because of the Solera cask. It tastes so much older than it really is.
And somebody's got a Solera bourbon program, maybe more than one distillery now.
They have.
Blade and Bow does.
Blade and Bow does. There's Solera, and oh my gosh, their product is epic.
Obviously it's different with spirits. I don't think you maybe don't have that full effect of a live product like you would with wine. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong there. But it's doing something for sure. You're getting effects of, but it's not quite the same, as in wine. But man, I'd love to try it.
I tell you what, hold on to those 63s because
there you go.
I really feel like that would make a good, last tier of your Solara would be those last 63s that you got in.
You think last, not first?
Correct. Let them all finish and marry in those three.
Yeah.
They've been used once. If you're not gonna, if you don't put more PX in them, I say maybe we start that.
There you go.
But that's one man's opinion.
Yeah. Donald wants to know: do you plan to do any triple wood experience then with make an ex bourbon with a sherry and a port wood with the triple distilled at all? Anything like that in the future?
So do like an additional cask finish? You say
triple wood,
yeah,
triple distilled.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's nothing that we've done, haven't done yet. It's nothing that we've done yet, but of course, yeah. No, it sounds like a blast, and I can see really, going from maybe a rum, to a wine finish to something even crazy like a tequila finish barrel or something like that. Yeah, that'd be a blast.
Now, do you guys do like barrel picks and all that good stuff as well?
Not yet, but we're about to start our barrel pick program. So, we've really wanted to have a real barrel pick experience for folks. I don't want to just lay out 3 barrels and say pick one of them. I want to give you a little freedom to roam, not full freedom to pick any barrel because a lot of them aren't ready yet, but really have a lot of variety to choose from. And, I don't feel like we're quite there yet. We've got several good barrels of every brand that people could probably pick from right now and have good picks. But, I think a real barrel pick it needs to involve a lot of barrels. And, that's just my opinion on what a barrel pick should be.
Totally agree with you completely.
At least 7, I think.
Yeah, at least
a good range of flavors.
Oh my god!
As many as you can reasonably taste, and it begins to be harder to taste 7 or more, at that point, your palate fatigue and everything. But no, that should be one of your few limitations. It's just really how many can you handle tasting and evaluating? Because you want a lot of things to choose from, and then you want to be able to compare those and do that side by side comparison, which is so valuable.
Yeah, because at Lone Elm we tried, I think, 14 different barrels.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Awesome. So how big are your how big are your regular barrels anyway? What size are you guys using?
All 53s. We started our first year with some 25-gallon barrels.
Okay.
And we feel those barrels are a good compromise between full size and baby barrels. There's been a couple distilleries that have managed to make a pretty good product out of baby barrels. Like I'm talking like 5-gallon barrels or smaller.
Right.
But man, that's not easy to do. I don't know how they did it. It's really hard to make a world-class product with a small hobby barrel. You just get way too much extraction, not enough oxidation and air exposure over that same time. And so we felt that 25s were a good compromise. We were able to get some of our smoked whiskeys out to market in about 9 months instead of 2 years.
Okay.
Pretty happy with the 25s. Our problem with them is that they cost more than 53s. And so you're buying twice as many and they cost more. And so for us, we just had to get away from them just for a sheer cost reason. You also get addicted to them. Your program gets built around this 9-month aging period, and then how do you ever break out of that? How do you break into those big barrels in the 2-year aging or 3-year aging or longer without running out of whiskey for a year? And so we wanted to make that jump quickly and soon,
especially when you're
early on.
Texas Monthly and booming all the way.
So how many barrels do you have approximately aging currently?
About 200.
Okay, so nice. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, we fill about 2 barrels every week, and so that's 100 a year, and that's 2 years worth of production. So that's about 200.
Okay, that works.
Arthur Lopez is asking. He missed some of the live stream. Did you touch on your fermentation process for the whiskeys? I don't believe I remember.
Not much, yeah. So we can talk about that. Yeah, we use some different yeasts for fermentation. It is a liquid fermentation, not mash, so it's more like a beer. So no agitation is required or anything. But we'll use. We definitely add a yeast culture. It's either going to be like a Scottish whiskey yeast or a beer yeast. We're using some of. We're right down the road from Real Ale. We're only about 5 minutes away. So we can get a live yeast culture from them anytime we want. We can get a 5-gallon keg full of yeast. We'll bring them some breakfast tacos, and it's a great trade for both of us. Yeast is a waste product for them, so they're paying to get rid of this stuff. So they like to give it away when they can, and so they're using an English ale yeast strain that's really we feel it probably appropriate for making whiskey. It's a high ester producing, very fruity producing yeast. Obviously, we're not going to really know until that whiskey's ready.
Sure.
We're able to taste the White Dog and do a little bit of evaluation, but man, you really can't make any final judgments on these things until the whiskey's totally done. So we'll get to see what that yeast is like. Since we're not boiling, so we basically do a mash and we'll run off the liquid, we'll lather the liquid up, but there's no boil like there would be for a beer. And the point of the boil is to sanitize your wash so that when you have a fermentation, it's very clean. And even though the mash is sitting at 150 degrees for an hour, that should be enough to pasteurize it, but it's just not. And so our fermentations are not 100% clean. And so our yeast strain does 99.9% of the work, but there is some wild yeast and bacterial presence on the grain itself, and that'll follow through the mash into the fermentation. And so the main part of the fermentation, the bulk of it's done in about 3 days. But there might be a little bit of dextrins and unfermentable sugars that the bacteria will then continue to work on for a few more days. And we will have a tart, slightly sour beer by the time it's time to distill it. So imagine a flat, strong, slightly tart 8% brown ale, if that kind of makes sense.
Makes sense. Now, do you
very Sounds really yummy. So
Do you guys do stainless steel tanks, open or closed fermentation? What are you guys using?
So it's all closed stainless.
Okay.
And like I said, there is already some of that wild yeast and bacteria in the grain.
Oh.
We're not looking to add any more.
Okay.
Yeah. And for us, we're able to get some good wine takes that work really well. And so yeah, we're just rolling with closed.
Makes sense.
All right. Well, it's just a little over 11 o'clock. We're coming up on about an hour and a half on being on live. So we're about to call it, I think. Ty, thank you very, very much for being on our stream with us today. But more importantly, thank you very, very much for your continued excellence of putting out just amazing, amazing whiskeys for us to drink. We appreciate the heck out of it. My
pleasure, you guys. It was a real pleasure being here. I definitely had to spend a little time to my DFW crew. I was a 1995 LD Bell graduate. So I grew up in that area. So yeah, shout out to all my DFW peeps.
Yes, we definitely love your products up here in DFW. That's for sure. So
yes, we do.
Like I said, one of my favorite distilleries in the state. Always happy to hang out with you guys and promote the hell out of you guys' whiskey because it's damn good stuff.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good. Everything I've ever had from you guys. So
maybe you should
do what?
I said if you haven't picked up some Andalusia yet, maybe you should.
Yeah, you should. If you can get it, or if you have a friend in Texas and you don't live in Texas, you should definitely buy them. Have them get it to you. Whatever means necessary. It's an important thing. Now, although
legal means
it might not be so easy. Yeah. You might have to wait a few weeks, but you'll get some. But good stuff for sure. Well, thanks for coming on, Ty. I really appreciate it, and thanks for making all this awesome whiskey. And I guess for coming up for us this week is we got some special whiskeys from Jeremy Burns, the Laird of Fintry, which is a very highly allocated Canadian single malt that's actually good. Ty, you'd actually like this.
All right.
So it'll be that episode of that's coming out tomorrow, and the Rumcast finish is going to be on Thursday. And then next week we're going to have our friend Ben Stahl. I think he may still be in the chat for Compass Box Night, which I think we're doing at least 24 different Compass Boxes.
Wow.
It's going to be an insane stream.
Epic.
It's going to be
happy.
Wow. Yeah.
So
I'll be watching that one.
All right. Well, sounds good. Thanks everybody in the chat this evening, and hope everybody had a great time. And thanks for everybody coming in. We'll see everybody next week. All right. Thank you very much, and cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody. Cheers. Oh, I just went back to that